Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. Let's face it, a lot of church members have an incomplete understanding of church history. Whose fault is it? Can it be blamed on leaders for not teaching it to us? In our next conversation with Sunstone host John Larsen, he and I are going to have a little bit of a debate on where that fault lies. Check out our conversation.
There's still stuff that gets me annoyed, right?
Uh-huh.
And for me, the higher they up on the pecking order, I've said many times that they have a hard job. They have an impossible job, the brethren. Mm-hmm. But it's their own doing. They've backed themselves into a corner. But the higher up you are in the organization, the less empathy I have for you, because you know what you're doing at this point. You know, there's plenty of bishops and stake presidents just trying to do their best. But if you're in the 15, you get no pass. You get no quarter from me.
Wow.
Is that too harsh?
I know it is for some people. I mean, I just, and I know some of my subscribers. In fact, one of them recently posted one of my podcasts on Mormon stories. And I was, for one thing, I was grateful for kind of the publicity or whatever, but he was pretty harsh on Elder Snow, and I was just like, wow, do you not give anybody the benefit of any doubt? I mean, one of my things is I try to talk about this from kind of a non-polemical point of view, kind of an academic point of view, so I don't put up with a lot of anger, and I know in Mormon stories, at least from my experience, and I'm sure people will disagree with me, but it's a very angry group. I know there's a stereotype of bitter ex-Mormons, and I feel like that applies in that group because there are so many angry people that won't give anybody of faith any benefit of the doubt, and that really bothers me.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I agreed with everything Elder Snow said. I mean, one of the things that Elder Snow said that I knew was going to cause a lot of pushback was when I said, so is there anything that bothers you about church history? And he said, no, I think it's inspiring. And I was just like, wow, there's going to be a lot of people that will disagree with that. And I was right. There were a lot of people that disagreed with that.
Well, I mean, that goes to my point is somebody who's a professional clergy. He doesn't have a day job, like bishops and stake presidents do. And he's got access to stuff that you and I don't have access to. And for them just to pretend that they don't know what's going on, for him to say that, he loses empathy with me. Because we only have 2 points. He's either willfully ignorant, which he has no excuse at his age, or he's lying. Tell me, is there another possibility? Please tell me, Rick. What am I missing?
Well,
because I have been struggling with that question since the day I left.
Well, and I know that, I mean, I guess I would kind of fit in there. Not that I agree with Elder Snow. There's lots of things about church history that bothers me, so I would have never answered the question that way. But I don't want people to accuse me of being willfully ignorant, which I think I've demonstrated I am not willfully ignorant. I'm very cognizant of all the major issues and try to talk about them.
But you're not calling the shots.
Well, that's true. I'm not calling the shots, but I mean, I think Elder Snow has been a wonderful advocate for the church history department. I mean, one of the things he said later on in the interview was that, he's trying to be transparent. He's trying to get stuff. We've got the Gospel Topics essays. That came out under his tenure. It started under Elder Jensen, but he was the one that shepherded it through, and he just felt like if we can get all this stuff out, we won't be accused of hiding anything, and it's going to be better for the church, which I agree with.
I agree with that, too.
I totally agree with that.
I should walk my stridency back a little bit. I don't know Elder Snow, and I really can't comment on his integrity, and I apologize that I have. I can comment on the integrity of the 15, because they lay out what they believe.
Well, but I don't know, because I do believe, even in talking with Elder Snow about those Gospel Topics essays, I could tell there was a few things he was a little rusty on or wasn't up to speed on. And so, and he was kind of pushing the envelope. I think there was probably more pushback than he admitted in my interview on the Gospel Topics essays. I've kind of heard through the grapevine from some other people that there was a lot of pushback and people didn't want, especially the Q15 or Q12 and whatever, didn't really want that out, because there was a big concern, and Elder Snow did address this. There was a big concern that some of these things would damage testimonies, and I think to some degree it has, but I think in the long run it's a good thing, and I frankly, the Quorum of 12 and the First Presidency, they are not historians. But they don't understand these issues, especially as well as I do, I think.
So let's use an example. Let's say that the Department of History at the University of Utah, let's say the chairman of that department is schooled in ancient, like, Babylonian history. Like, that's where she did all of her research. Mm-hmm. But she's in charge of the department. Then she goes into the history folks and starts saying, you can't teach this. I know this is real history. You can't teach this, can't teach this, because that will mar our students' belief in American history the way we want to teach it.
Yeah.
I would dare say that not only would you want her fired, you might want her put in jail for that. And that's exactly what these guys are doing.
I don't think I would paint it in those stark of terms, but I will say this, because I pushed back on Elder Snow a little bit on that one point, because we were talking about polygamy. And, I said, the essay says that she was in her 15th year. Why don't we just say that she was
almost 15 or whatever?
That she was 14. And Snow said, you're right. We should have done that. Right. And I was like, wow, I didn't expect that kind of a concession. But that kind of shows you, I think, where Elder Snow is coming from. And so for people to give him such a hard time, realize he's the one pushing the ball forward. And I think he's taken a lot of abuse. I mean, he didn't say that, but I do think that he's taken a lot of heat from some of the others who didn't want this out, and they wanted to soften it and say, Helen Mar Kimball was almost 15. So I credit Elder Snow for that. I think that's pretty awesome.
You're much more compassionate, and Elder Jensen did a great job before him with as much as Elder Jensen could do. Mm-hmm. They are in a non-winnable situation, but I mean that's my point. If you become CEO of a corporation and you suddenly find out the corporation is corrupt, there's only one human thing to do. That's shut down the corporation.
I would push back and say it's not corrupt, but but does it have problems? Yes, it has problems. Every organization has problems that need to be resolved. But to me, that's pushing it a little bit too far to say the organization's corrupt.
All right, fair enough.
I understand where you come from.
We can argue that out another day. I'll concede the point. But I think this is one of the problems. I think philosophically and compassionately and practically and pragmatically, you're right. But I'm representing the kind of smarmy ex-Mormon who's going to cling to truth, capital T, no matter what. The problem that people like me have is we apply that to anything, we would be able to shop nowhere.
Exactly.
We would be able to interact with no organization. So while I might be technically correct, it doesn't necessarily give me a good model for living in this world or for advancing, trying to ostensibly get to the bottom of what I'm trying to do now, which is figure all of us out how to live in peace. And I haven't figured out that tension, because there's part of me and part of people who want me to not criticize the church in a strident way, because saying, well, you're disrupting the peace you're trying to create. And and they're right to an extent, but they're also wrong in that I shouldn't just let this organization that sometimes does difficult things for people, I shouldn't let them pass, because there's very little pushback. They have so much power that's what I think has happened in the last 20 years. They have markedly lost a lot of their political influence they used to have, and I think more than anything, the brethren right now just don't know what to do. When I look at what they're doing, they have this organization that they love, that has provided them strength and meaning in a world that has provided strength, and they see a lot of these positives. Right, this is the bone I'm throwing them, and they don't want to throw it out. Matter of fact, I think if the church were to die tomorrow, we'd have a huge crisis. Both sociologically, economically, we would probably see spikes in crime and stuff, because it does give people a pattern for how to live their life. So it's a tension that I will acknowledge, and I don't have the solution. Yeah,
and I think it's one of those things, being kind of a middle way Mormon or whatever. I'm still going to use the term Mormon. I don't care. It's fine. I'm not offended. But being in the middle, you have to be comfortable kind of getting hit from the Orthodox and getting hit from the ex-Mormons, and you have to be comfortable in being uncomfortable, which is a hard thing. And I think there are some people that they get so angry and they're just like, burn it all down. It's all terrible. It's all corrupt. And I don't know. There's a lot about an individual's personality in that, but and I guess I'm okay with being permanently uncomfortable. And I know not everybody is, and some people just have to leave. And if that's better for you, I talked to one of my subscribers at Sunstone just last month, and he told me he was in the bishopric in 2015, and he resigned shortly thereafter. And I was just like, wow. If you are in a better place, I'm happy for you, but I also miss you as being part of the church. So, the church isn't for everybody. I understand that. And if being outside of the church makes you happier, it will make me sad that you're not in the church. But if you're in a better place, I want you to be in a better place.
Thank you. I mean, I think that's a great way to look at it. And I wrote an essay a few years ago, more stridently, saying everyone needs to leave the church because it's the liberals, it's the progressive Mormons who prop it up. And if they all walked away, it would collapse But I think my view has evolved a little bit more that for an institution like the church to have real change, it needs pressure from the outside and it needs pressure from the inside. That in order to get to a church, and I'm not talking about any kind of like doctrinal truth, one that is more healthy for all of its members, one where LGBT kids don't encounter the doctrine and feel their life is worthless, they need to end it. I'm talking about fixing things like that, which I think the progressive Mormons who are inside and the people on the outside, we want the same goal. We want less suffering. Mm-hmm. And I think for the most part, most of even the church authorities, I mean, there's a couple, I'll call Oaks out. This guy has no heart, and he never has. I was waiting for that smile to come. Come on, if I say these things for you.
I don't think I would agree with that statement, but it's your statement.
Well, I probably don't agree with it either, but I think that he knows better, given his law career, than some of the things he's saying.
Well, I'm still trying to get him on my podcast for his book, Carthage Conspiracy, which is a great book, by the way.
It's a great book, and he used to be involved in things like Sunstone Dialogue. That's why I'm so disappointed in him. And he can see the logical fallacies in the stuff that he's been putting out lately. And of course, then we have the videos of him just utterly obsessed with who's a homo and who's not. So, but this is one of the things you get when you have a gerontocracy, right? you have the thoughts and the church is always 30 years behind from its leadership, but. Lest I'm throwing the whole thing under the boat. That is not where the members are. Generally speaking, when I interact with LDS people, 10, 20% are assholes, which is...
on both sides of the spectrum.
For where ex-Mormons, it's more like 40%, right? So they're beating us there. And I think most people are just trying their best to create a loving world. They're trying to follow the gospel, and that's the struggle that I have and a lot of people have is we conflate the church and its membership way too much, and even we conflate the leadership of the church and the church too much, and that's why, to go back full circle, I really appreciate the kind of work that you're doing and the folks who can really start digging in this without getting into the polemics. And I've been way too guilty of that because my favorite discussions never come up on recording. It's when there's faithful people and fundamentalists and atheists and philosophy people never been in the church. You get them in a room after a Sunstone conference or something, and that's when the magic happens.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Anson-Park, Executive Director of the Sunstone Education Foundation. I want to invite you to our weekly Sunstone Firesides. Do you remember those? Firesides that they used to have dating all the way back to the 1930s, when the LDS Church would hold monthly meetings to discuss really important gospel topics. Those meetings became known endearingly as Firesides. In January of 2019, Sunstone launched a new podcast that incorporates a nod to these firesides, featuring a weekly evening podcast. It will display a range of hosts, all women, as they chat with diverse guests from across the Mormon spectrum. The hosts are all female-identifying that represent a broad perspective in Mormonism. These podcasts will be released every Thursday evening, so you can have that fireside feel brought right into your living room. So grab a cup of cocoa or coffee, since at Sunstone there is more than one way to Mormon. Snuggle up under a blanket and listen to incredible interviews by and from incredible people. You can support women and their work in Mormon studies, which is desperately needed, by donating at sunstone.org or becoming a monthly subscriber. Go to sunstone.org and click on the podcast tab for more info. We hope you enjoyed as much as we do.
I hope you enjoyed the discussion between me and Sunstone host John Larsen. In our next conversation, we'll talk about some of our Mormon cousins from other restoration groups. I wanted to go to the Temple Lot Church, and I talked to that guy probably for 6 or 7 hours. It was amazing. I wish I could have gotten that one recorded. I asked, and he said no. I went to the Cutlerite Church, and I talked to that lady for probably 2 hours. I got a tour of their church. I even got a quote in Sunstone because of something I learned from her. So listen to Mel Johnson's Sunstone presentation if you want to hear that. If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please subscribe to patreon.com/gospeltangents. And for just $5 a month, you can hear the entire interview without any interruption. If you'd like a paperback version of our transcripts, go to amazon.com and do a search for Gospel Tangents interview. Also, if you'd like to give the money to me and not Amazon, please subscribe on my website, and I'll be able to send you a transcript as soon as they are completed, and click the subscribe button. You can also find our latest information on facebook.com/gospeltangents, as well as we're on Twitter @gospeltangents. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. The link is at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents, and you can subscribe there. Also, please give us a 5-star review. If you want to support all of the podcasts as part of the Dialogue Podcast Network, go to lyceum.fm, that's lyceum.fm, and do a search for Dialogue Podcast Network or Gospel Tangents, because, that's a pretty cool one too. Thanks again for listening. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some of our great videos. Thanks again.